YouTube, this is Darkon633 back with another Transformers review. Today we're going to take a look at the Transformers Power of the Prime's Voyager class Grimlock. Now this particular figure has been quite a pain to actually get a hold of, especially since the stocking of this figure has been pretty bad to what I've seen ever since the last part of 2017 leading into this year, and it was a real nuisance to actually finally get a hold of it. I didn't manage to finally get this on Amazon. I'm glad I finally did. The figure itself might not be the perfect Grimlock in general, but it's definitely a nice update to the character, especially if we did not get the Fall of Cybertron version many years back. This is actually a pretty good Grimlock in its own means, but it does have a few problems here and there. Anyway, so take a look at the box first. The box is a little bit different than what we've seen with some of the other releases. It does have this interesting open style box there. It has a picture of Grimlock in his Dinobot mode. Shows that he is a part of the Volcanius formation, and pretty much shows what you usually see on the back of the boxes. He transfers in 8 steps, which is kind of lackluster for a Voyager class figure, to be perfectly honest. And he does have some promotions with the other Prime Masters. Outside of the box, the main contents you get is the card, which my version is Amalgamous Grimlock, so that's pretty interesting. The 2 foot pieces, which can be used as weapons on the side there, and the actual Prime Core, which is just a solid piece. It doesn't have any articulation or anything since it doesn't transform into anything. It's just a single core. Unfortunately, there is no other weapons with Grimlock, and that's very disappointing, especially since all the other Dinobots had at least one weapon, either being a standard gun or the sword. But this time, all you're getting is what you see here, which is very unfortunate. Other than that, the figure is okay, which we'll now look at more closely. Articulation-wise, the head does swivel a little bit. It is not really in a ball joint for what I could tell. It might actually be in a ball joint, but there isn't a whole lot of movement you're going to get with this particular head. He does have ratchets at the shoulders with outward movement and somewhat an inner movement, but it's a little bit different just because it is attached to the chest panel, so you do need to move things around in order to get that into place. He does have swivels at the biceps and actually has double jointed elbows, which is actually very interesting. It's not even specifically made for transformation in general. It's just something that they added for articulation and can be used for the transformation. For what I can tell, this is mostly for the Volcanius transformation than anything else. He does have some joints in the wrists, but that's mainly due to transformation. You're not going to get a whole lot there. He actually does have a waist joint, but the actual back panel piece does kind of bump in the way when you actually move it. He has ratchets at the hips, swivels at the thighs, only in the lower part. It doesn't have any other joint up there. He does have ratchets for knees, which is really nice, and nothing else since the feet are pretty much just solid pieces. Unfortunately, this figure does have some stickers, and the way that they're placed is definitely not the most annoying, but it does kind of get in the way since you do bump against it quite a bit, especially when you move it around. Next, we're going to take a look at the actual foot pieces. These pieces actually have area where you can actually put Prime Masters or Titan Masters or whatever you wish, and on the back of the box, it shows that they attach on the sides like arm gauntlets, which I can see what they're getting with this, but it's definitely not the best kind of weapon gimmick for what I can tell. I did wish if there's a chance to actually release it with the weapon, maybe they could have scrapped these, but obviously that is something that they decided to do for the actual combination. On the back of the box, it shows that the core that the Grimlock comes with, it says that it actually is the Dinobot Enigma. So I guess it's just something that they added for the name for the actual Volcanius formation. I'm actually not going to show the Volcanius transformation now, and I'll be waiting until the other 2 Dinobots to be released before I actually do that. But first, we'll just go on to the standard transformation to his Tyrannosaurus mode. Anyways, we'll move on to that. Grimlock and his Tyrannosaurus Rex mode. Now, I actually decided to compare this a little bit differently than what I usually do for my comparisons, since I decided to actually focus mostly on the Dinobot mode first. before anything else, here is a comparison between the G1 version of Grimlock next to the new Power of the Primes version of Grimlock. Unfortunately, I think the overall bulk is definitely a lot better done for the original G1 toy, even if this toy wasn't specifically made by Hasbro, since it was using one of the older molds made by Takara. It is still kind of alarming that this particular version of Grimlock is definitely on the small side. He really should have been a lot bigger, maybe towards the leader scale, but I can understand why it might not have worked as well in the long run. But it is unfortunate that this version of Grimlock is quite small compared to the other versions of him here. As another comparison, here he is next to the other two G1 Dinobots that we've gotten so far, which is both a new version of Slug/Slag and Swoop, which I think works really nice, even if they're not 100% accurate to their models in general, but it is still pretty close, and I'm really glad to actually own them. Anyways, we'll now move on to the articulation in this mode. His mouth can actually open and close, and unfortunately he does not have any head swivel, but it can move up and down. He does have ball joints for his dinosaur hands, which do work pretty decently. He has the same ratchets as his arms did, the same knee joints as well. So that's something that I guess it works for articulation, just for posing in his Dinobot mode. One thing to notice that his tail is definitely on the large side, but it actually reminds me a lot of what happened with the Fall of Cybertron version of Grimlock, so it's not really that big of a deal for me, in my opinion. I'm just glad that the actual stomach area is actually enclosed, since the Fall of Cybertron one had this large open gap just because of budgetary reasons, I think, and it just might have been a little bit too difficult for Hasbro to design it. And now that we got Grimlock back in his robot mode, I'm going to make one more final comparison with a few other figures. Here is Grimlock next to his G1 counterpart in robot mode, and it's definitely got a lot of design aesthetics from the original G1 design, but it's definitely a lot better in terms of proportions, in my opinion, at least for the robot mode. As another comparison, here is Grimlock next to the other currently released deluxe styled Dinobots we've gotten so far. So here's Slug, which unfortunately for some reason mine got loose over time, which is annoying, but we also have Swoop. So it's definitely rounding up pretty nicely overall, and I think it turned out really cool for the three Dinobots in general. As a little bonus, I decided to try out a little something, and I think it actually works out pretty well. If you actually have the sword from the Fall of Cybertron Grimlock, it actually fits in very nicely into his hand, and if you actually have one of the Prime Masters, this one specifically, just to remind myself, it's Cloudburst. It does have the double barrel design, and for that, I think it actually works well, since he did have a double barrel cannon, or gun, in the original G1 toy line and design. So that's actually really cool. Obviously, it's definitely on the larger side, but I think it works in my opinion, especially if you actually got another one of these and repainted it fully in the colors. I think it works out decently. So overall, while this Grimlock's definitely not a perfect figure, I think it turned out really nice in the new Generations line. One thing I actually did not mention is that when you actually transform this figure, for some reason mine has a problem with these chest panel pieces. Don't like to stand as well as I would like. It does stay on okay, but it's not as snug as I wished it to, since it does have a tendency to popping out when you're moving it, but it's definitely not the worst I've seen. So in conclusion, I think this is a okay version of Grimlock, and especially if you want a consistent set of Dinobots, this is definitely an important figure to get a hold of in order to get all 5 of the main Dinobots. I'm really glad that they're continuing into the Dinobot releases, and it's been so long to see updates for these characters that I cannot wait to see both the final 2 Dinobots be released in the Generations line. Anyways, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and check out Hero Club and Hirotaku. Also check out Twitter, Darkon633, and also Instagram under Darkon633 as well. Please check the other channels down below, and don't forget to check the bell at the bottom of the screen in order to see my content go up as soon as possible. I'm back with more Transformers reviews, but for now, I'll be seeing you later, YouTube. Bye.